going on, everybody? It's Keith with the Tulsa Moto Club, and today we're going to make this leather bag for the SR. So there's this gap that lives between the seat and the tank on the SR. It happens a lot when you get a different seat for a motorcycle, something that's not made specifically for that bike. It's just not going to fit right. So in my case, to fill this gap, I decided to make a bag, which, you know, it's going to be small and everything, but it'll still be functional and it's going to fill up that hole, which is its main purpose, and that's what I want to do. So let's get started. But before we really get into it, let me just stress that I'm not a professional leather worker by any means. Honestly, it's just a hobby and I'm kind of winging it and just figuring it out as I go along, and I figured I'd take you guys with me. So I had the idea that I wanted the bag mounted directly to the frame itself. That way it didn't wobble around or do anything like that, and it constantly kept that gap full. And to do so, I decided I'd make a fiberglass plate to kind of go down where that spot would be. That way I can ensure that the whole gap gets filled and it fits exactly how I need it to. Plus, I get to practice my fiberglass work, so why not? The plate also serves as the main mounting point as well. It might not make sense now, but as the video goes along, you'll start to see it come together and it'll make a lot more sense down the road. Once I had the fiberglass laid down, I let it cure overnight. And once it was cured, I did some test fitting and trimming and got it to the exact shape that I wanted before we really got down to the leather work. Once I was happy with the template that I made, I transferred it to a 4-ounce piece of leather. I'm using veg tan leather, which is the most common used leather for any kind of leather work for the most part, or at least in my experience. It's really easy to work with, and you can dye it whatever color you want, you can tool it, you can do all sorts of stuff to it. And like I said, it's pretty easy to work with. To trace the template onto the leather, I just used the scratch awl. And to actually cut it out, I just used a rotary cutter, and for the details like the corners and everything, I just used the razor blade. Now, since the seat is black on the SR, I decided I would dye the bag black as well. Once I had the leather dyed, I punched a hole for a grommet that would house the screw that mounts the bag to the frame itself. The purpose of the grommet is just so that the screw doesn't wear on the leather too hard and tear it up or anything like that. And at this point too, before you start sewing everything together, if you have any other holes to punch, like stitching holes or any holes that you need for snaps or things like that, now's the time to do it when the leather's flat. It's the easiest. In my case, I didn't know where I was going to put the snap for the bag, so I worked on it at the end, which there's a way to do it, but like I said, now would be the easiest time to do it when the leather's flat. Now it's time to secure the mounting plate onto the leather itself. And to do so, I just used some rubber cement. And the way that that works is you're going to spread some rubber cement on both pieces that you want to stick together and let it sit for a few minutes. And then after that you can stick them together, but know that they're really hard to pull back apart and adjust. So make sure that you're exactly where you want it. Otherwise, you're gonna have some problems and it's not gonna be that much fun anymore, and you might even have to start over. So now that I have the mounting plate attached to the leather itself and everything is lined up, before I stitch it all together, I also want to add a liner to it. There's really no purpose to the liner other than that I like the way that it looks, and it covers up that plate, so anything that gets put in the bag won't get scratched up or hit anything hard or anything like that. It's kind of just a protection, like if you were to throw your phone or something in the bag. So on to stitching the bag. Stitching the bag is pretty easy. If you have an industrial sewing machine, you can use that. I don't though, so I'm going to be stitching by hand. And before I start stitching, you'll see that I lay down a stitching groove. You can do this with a number of tools. There's actual stitching groove tools, or you can just use a pair of calipers or something like that. The purpose of the groove not only helps you line up your punches so that you can sew a straight line into the fabric, but it also helps the thread sit down flush with the leather so there's not any weird bumps or anything like that. And really just protects it in the long term. And like I said before, ideally you want to make the stitching groove and these holes and everything earlier in the process when you can lay the leather flat. So now on to actually sewing the bag up. To do so, I'm going to be doing a saddle stitch. I don't want to go into detail and explain what a saddle stitch is. If leatherwork is something you're really interested in and would like to see more of on my channel, let me know. But I'll also be sure to link a video down below that's pretty helpful on explaining what a saddle stitch is. Technique of where the thread lays in your stitch. That way it's a nice, even, consistent line throughout and it doesn't look silly or anything like that. Once I had it all stitched up, I moved on to adding those snap buttons after I found an appropriate spot for them and just added those in. To get the inside of the bag, you can use a block of wood or something like that to help support the hardware when you hammer it into place. It was time to move on to finishing the edges, which for that I used an edge beveler and beveled all my edges. Again, something else you should have done much earlier on in the process. I'm winging it, sorry. Then I also used an edge varnishing tool made out of cocobolo with my Dremel tool. This is really great. You can get these things by hand and get the job done, but since this one's attached to the Dremel, it just makes the whole process a lot faster. Finally, I just added a coat of wax and the bag is complete. Again, like I said, leatherwork is just a hobby for me. But if you really do enjoy these, I enjoy it as well. So if you want to see more, make sure to let me know. And if you have any ideas for projects or advice or anything like that for me, make sure to let me know down in the comment. But that's it for this video. Here's a couple other videos I think you'll enjoy as well. And if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon. That way you don't miss out on any future videos I put out or any other things that I've got going on. There's a lot happening this year and I don't want you guys to miss any of it. So as always, thanks for watching. Later.